Hello, everyone. Welcome to LOA Uncorked. This is Holly.
And this is Jeanna.
And we have a VIP today.
Like main stage VIP.
I mean, stage is that is, he's been on stage his whole life.
Yes.
He's an actor. He's a performer.
Yes.
He's from Germany.
Uh-huh.
And he's a personal impact coach.
What a cool title.
We're going to unpack what that means.
Mm-hmm.
And his whole life, he's been on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And he is coming to us from Germany, and
Yes.
he does one-on-one sessions and workshops. We're going to talk about one of his workshops he has going right now, the power of forgiveness.
Yes.
And he also has these transformational programs with clients that are actually in the public eye, Jeanna,
Mm-hmm.
and helps them actually achieve their highest potential.
Yeah.
And enjoy it. Can you imagine that?
A little fun from the main
Well,
stage.
and Jeanna, you come from an entertainment background,
Yes.
and we won't tell you what famous person she worked for.
Yeah. Yeah.
But did they enjoy? I mean, did people enjoy this success?
Well, I mean, yes and no, right? I think there are parts of it that are big and bold and beautiful, and there are parts of it that aren't so much.
It's
interesting. It's an interesting.
So we're going to
profession.
unpack all of this today.
For sure.
Welcome, Gido Schimanski, to LOA Uncorked.
Hi, Gido.
I'm so excited to be here. Hi.
We are too.
Yes.
In a big way.
Yeah. And you got to go to YouTube and watch the video to see Holly's eyes. They're like twice the size they normally are.
Well, and I know what Gina's going to say. Gina goes, already. She goes, I'm going to get the paperwork because you're going to start stalking him.
Yes.
And I said, well, I already have started.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
I mean, you're in a long line of esteemed colleagues in this area, but Holly loves everyone a little to an uncomfortable level sometimes for some folks. So I just always get the paperwork ready for our guests just in case
They're
you
uncomfortable.
feel uncomfortable and you want to put like a restraining order on. I can help you with that
That's
paperwork. Yes.
It's
But
true.
you might have to do the paperwork for me too this time. So
yeah, exactly.
we're gonna co-stock you. So welcome. So Gido, we typically start our podcast with just an opportunity for our audience to hear a little bit about your story, the things about you that you think would be really important for folks to know to kind of ground the conversation today. And then we'll kind of, start to talk about some of the things that Holly outlined in your background and experience. But if you could just share a little bit about the milestones of Gido and what brought you to where you are today, I think that'd be really helpful.
Wow, what a brilliant exercise for me to do. The milestones of Gido. We should have gone one.
Milestones.
As you said, I've been on stage most of my life. I started off as a ballet boy. So I actually danced for the Bavarian State Ballet back then. We're talking about the 90s. This is a long time ago. At some point, I wanted to use my voice, so I started acting to support my body, because as a dancer, I always only ever spoke up here. I started singing just to bring my voice down into my body, and I ended up playing a lot of musicals. And so I played Cats for like 3 years, and Mamma Mia, and all these big shows. But I was always interested. I always say I was always interested in how people tick and why they tick the way they tick, and how we can change the way they tick. I started reading Shirley MacLaine when I was 17, and for me that was the game changer. Out on a Limb. I mean, what a brilliant book. And I mean, it was so out there, and all I remember is that I didn't understand any of it, but it made sense in some way.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing this. I did Reiki courses when I was 21 to cope with some breakups and all these different things. So this has always been ticking in the background. And then when I left Mamma Mia in 2008, I was living in London. I moved to London at some point. I lived there for 11 years, but in that time I came to Germany to play a show here. And when that finished, it was quite a stressful time. I found myself thinking, I need to do something else. I need to learn something else, not do something else. And as always, the biggest things in my life that I do or did always happened out of flow and always out of an impulse. So I spoke with a friend. A friend of mine called me one night. It was my Monday night. Mondays were the off night. And after we spoke for an hour, I said, listen, I want to do something else. I want to learn something new, but not just another energy course or something like this. She said, oh my God, that's why I'm calling you. Remember the doctor we talked about who dives into belief systems? I just booked a course with him. And I said, well, I thought you have to book the whole year. She said, no, you can book the first module just by itself. If you book it in the next 2 hours, you get 250 euros off because it's the early bird special is running out tonight, midnight. I just spoke to the hotel. They have one single room left. And make sure you book the 5-course dinner. I mean, I was like, somebody just went, book it now, don't think. And I booked something, I had no idea what it was. And that is the basis of everything I do today.
Wow.
So I had big breakthroughs in those first 5 days. I've been at my highest highs and I've at my lowest lows. And then one of the coaches there just literally picked me up in about 15 minutes. And that I remember that moment thinking that I want to learn. And I came back and I started treating people. I mean, I did a bit of, the odd Reiki stuff on my colleagues. And I remember putting a poster up at Sadler's Wells Theatre, which is known in London for dance shows. And I knew quite a few dancers who performed there. So I put a poster up and I said, so I tried this I learned this new thing and I'm doing 20 sessions for free. These were my first 20 sessions. I'm doing 20 sessions for free because I want to learn muscle testing and all these different things. And I remember, and I don't advise anyone to do this now, but I remember putting it up there and everyone and every problem welcome. And everyone and every problem came. Literally everything I didn't believe was ever a topic. And the stuff that when I learned it, just dismissed because I thought, oh, that's bullshit. That's not real. And they were all in within the first five sessions. And that's when I realized that really I know nothing. And I started diving in and I literally just did this for myself at first to get through my own anxieties because I've been on stage for 25 years. And at that point, well, now I've been on stage for over 30 years, but at that point I didn't enjoy much of it because I always thought I'm not good enough. I know that people envied my career, but I always just thought, when are they finding out I'm actually not that good? I'm not supposed to be here. I don't have the proper training that everybody else has. Right. All this imposter bullshit.
Yes.
Pardon my swearing. I don't know.
We swear here.
We swear often.
And that's actually
liberally and often. Liberally and often.
often.
So yes. Feel free to let it loose.
So I just did this work on myself, and then friends and colleagues asked me, and then it went from there. And at some point, I realized I was speaking to who became my mentor, who was a friend of mine at that point. And I said, so I've got all these clients. I had clients in Singapore, in America, in London, in Germany, in Spain. And I remember thinking, but this is not a business, because I never saw it as a business. In my head, I was a performer who knows nothing about business with all the bad programming. She looked at me and she said, you don't really know what I really do you? Because I knew her as, in the same field as I was. I said, no. She said, I've been a CFO in the London City for 3 companies. I now help startups. And if you want, I can help you. And I mean, she was the one literally flow. It was flow. Yeah. Wow. She took me under her wings and she had me practice literally what I live today. I remember practicing conversations with Elton John and Meryl Streep on the computer with a teddy bear and all this. So I'm telling you all the crazy stuff now. So, well, these are the milestones of Gido, some of them.
Those are incredible milestones.
I love that. And, a couple of things that you said about like the imposter syndrome, that exists everywhere, not just on stage. Right. I've encountered that, and I am a CFO. I'm laughing about that because it is. I was like, but an imposter CFO, but yet I was always good at it. And I never, there was parts of me that said, they're going to find me out, that because I'm not your normal CFO. No, I'm not. No. Anyway, so that exists. And then the flow and going with the impulse, the flow and the impulse. And do you think that did you always recognize that and say yes to that when it showed up? Because I feel like, is it possible that you can ignore it and then not even know it's coming at you, these flow and impulse? What are your thoughts on that?
I think you can if you're really out of touch with yourself, and I believe a lot of people are. For me, I've been ignoring a lot of them as well, because sometimes ratio kicks in and logic kicks in. You think, well, no, but this sounds like a good job and you should do it for the money and the experience, and you end up being miserable for a year and a half. It's a good lesson. So I believe you can learn to be in flow. I believe there's a method to being in flow, and there's a method for, let's put it this way. A lot of people always said, oh, you always have stuff falling into your lap. You know, you're always lucky. And I said,
you're lucky, yeah.
Right.
It's a method. I chose at some point to put my focus in a certain direction. And I don't mean I put a happy sticker on the problems and don't look there. Quite the opposite. I believe these are the biggest things for us to learn from, to go, why are they there? Why they're blocking us? In fact, I believe they're part of flow. And I can elaborate on that a little bit later. But then turn the focus around and put in a little bit of discipline. And if something knocks on the door 3 times, if you get the same message 3 times, if people send you this, I had this yesterday, the same video popped up 3 times, wasn't interested. And then a friend sent it to me. I said, oh, I'm not interested. Another friend actually called me. She said, I'm going to send you a video. You have to watch this. You have to look at this because this is so important for your work. And she sends me again the same video. I'm like, okay,
wow.
I love
you gotta
that.
practice. And I think
go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that you have to practice with little stuff. Start with, where do I cross the intersection? What shorts do I wear today? What time do I go to the gym, rather than do I leave my husband or do I sell my life insurance?
Yeah, right.
You want to know straight away, you know, and
Right.
get used to, is it intuition or is it ego or fear? That's the danger.
I love that.
So when you started to practice your work, and I love the fact that you started your work with your peers and giving back, because I suspect you were probably doing that as part of the cast, even, you know, performing, right? Being part of a performing cast. But so I'm kind of curious, you know, I think about this a lot, and I think it gets into a lot of your work around forgiveness and things like that. And flow is, you know, did it surprise you what people were dealing with that you knew well? It sounds like you knew many of those that came and brought no problem too big, no problem too small to your table. Like, did it surprise you and what folks were dealing with? And has that informed your work in any way?
Oh, what a brilliant question. Did it surprise me? Yes and no, because a lot of the stuff that came to me, I knew.
Okay.
And actually the basic work that I learned was being a health coach. So I was trained to look at the underlying blocks that might create an illness or stop you from healing.
Right.
It just became very heavy at some point, and I just felt this is not my calling. My calling is somewhere else.
Yeah.
Because then you really have to dig deep and long, and people, you know, people are in a different space. And so when people came with some really outrageous things to me, that was literally, these were usually the times when I completely stepped out, and I just thought, well, whatever lands on my table, apparently I can handle it, otherwise it wouldn't be here. And I always had this cheeky conversation with the universe or the angels, and I always said, well, if you think I need to handle this, it's up to you, you know, it's your fault. I'm doing what I can, but it's your fault.
You brought it here. Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
For some reason, that really helped me to step out, to not take, well, to step to be out of the attachment.
Yeah.
Because I remember one of the biggest things I took away from my teacher, my first teacher, was the biggest problem in teaching is when you want to help too much, because you're attached to their outcome. And that stops you from being neutral. And that took years to really feel that, to really go, I'm here to see what shows up and help you with that. But if I want this too much, I'm not clear anymore.
Right. Oh gosh.
I love that. If you're so right.
Yeah, that's powerful. I mean, just thinking about my own life, places where, you know, you overextend yourself, not for the greater good, but rather your own.
Well, it's always your ego.
Ego and ego and outcome.
Yeah. No,
and sorry, but if you know, someone who is very exposed in the public eye, and I mean, it's interesting with footballers because I've never been in the field of football. This is my father, as my brother has, and I was the ballet dancer. So, you know, I was completely out there. So it wasn't my world. And I think that helped a lot because they knew I didn't understand the field, but I understood the pressure.
Yes.
From my background and from the people I've worked with. So if, let's say, you have someone who comes in who is a pop star who is dealing on that level, and you then have a prefixed picture of them and what they're going through, I'm gonna treat them through my filters rather than they actually coming with something that is completely different that everybody else expects, because they're just, as we said in the beginning, yes, they have their success and they enjoy a lot of it, but then there might be some things that they don't want anyone to know because it seems so off the charts for them and for everybody else.
Right.
So you got to take it out.
Yeah. Oh, fascinating.
I love that. So can you just define what personal impact coaching is?
Oh, who knows?
We really like it.
You're a performer. Make something up. Razzle dazzle us.
No,
I'm sure.
Well, so I picked up, this is not my creation. There is actually in London, there's a couple of personal impact coaches, and for me, it defines, it's the impact you can make personally on the outside. You make the mark you leave, you know, that's personal impact, but also impact you personally. So for me, what I love about it is, and why you're probably asking, it's specifically vague. It gives you an idea, it gives you a feeling, but everybody can project a little bit onto it what it is. And why I drilled that name home so much was actually when I started working. The reason why I'm in the place where I'm right now is I started a cooperation with a performance center for professional athletes. And especially with footballers, I was introduced as the mental coach. And that's a big thing, and they all have mental coaches or psychotherapists, or what I think they're usually in Germany usually called mental coaches. And I'm a health coach. I work differently, and I didn't really object in the beginning, but I always thought, well, this is not really me. And then I came into a treatment room, and there was a group of football ladies, and they were all being, 3 were being treated, three were just there to chat, and and I walk in, and one of the therapists says, oh, by the way, this is Gido, this is our mental coach, and he's like, you're so-and-so from your team. And I kid you not, one of them looked at me, walked 2 steps back, and left the room.
Oh, wow.
And I noticed that, and I didn't think much of it, and the next morning I was meditating, and suddenly I just went, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, right.
What did I do?
And I realized something was really off. And I literally went back into the center and I asked every footballer I came across, can I ask you a question? What do you think, what is a mental coach for you? And they literally all said the same thing. Superficial. And I'd hope I'm not
no, I don't think you are. No.
But their perception was, and I can tell you why, their perception was, it's too superficial. You can't trust them. And once you tell them something, your manager and trainer will know within half an hour. And I thought, the stuff I deal with, if you come to me and you have, let's say, performance anxiety, that's usually linked to something from your past, from childhood. Yes. You don't want anyone to know that. Therefore, they will never open up. So a mental coach is someone who streamlines where you're thinking, but that isn't the work I was doing.
Yeah.
And so I literally just sent a big message out to everyone saying, this term mental coach is never to be used again. That I'm a personal impact coach, and that's it. And this is how this name kind of just stuck.
That's a great story.
Yeah. And I think, it's interesting, and it's interesting that you bring it up. That's obviously where people are doing their most important personal development work, but it's tied to their job. And so I think it's always interesting when, I think about it with celebrities as well, but I think, when you have that work to do and it's tied to your being able to pay your bills at night, there is a different, as an HR person, I have the same challenge with people coming and bringing. I mean, it would be great to understand what people are going through, but they're so afraid because they think there's this linkage with the business and that there's not a safe space. And, so it's I think a pretty common feeling, especially, like I said, if it's part of your job. But it's amazing that you were able to work through that and change the perception of the work, and how important it is, and kind of decouple it a bit from, the club, and put it at the individual level, right? So that's incredible.
And it took, especially in sports, it took a lot of discussions. Me saying, well, you can tell everybody, I won't share a word. And then discussing with managers of family members, oh no, but we need to know. And I said, no, we can happily all sit together and I will ask, but that even is too much pressure for a young athlete. Especially in as you mentioned, with celebrities and in the sports world, when your market value, your value is tied to if you have a crack or not, if you perform.
Right.
You are not willing to dive in.
Yep. No, absolutely. It's touchy area. That's incredible. And no doubt your performance background played a huge role in helping keep that in perspective. No doubt.
Well, maybe. But I also strongly believe it is not about, there is nothing to fix. We all need healing. That's part of being human. Yes. We all need healing. Otherwise, that's gross. However, you're a superstar. There's nothing that needs to be fixed. However, if there's an area where you're not happy or you feel you can expand, let's look at what you can let go in order to make that easier. And that is something I wholeheartedly believe. This is not about what else is wrong with me. Right. I don't believe in that question. I just don't. It's not about what else is wrong with you. It's what else do you want to change? Right. There's nothing wrong.
I love that. How do you go about unearthing and helping people find their limiting beliefs? How do you go about doing that? I assume that's part of the process.
I'm going to give the magic beans away. No.
Yeah, I want you to fix me. Truth be told, where's the couch? I want to lay down.
Yes. Yeah, she will.
Is that like I assume that's part of your, one-on-one coaching, whether it's with athletes or performers or CEOs. I mean, you have everybody, right?
Yes, and this is literally what I do. What you just described. Yeah. I do. Funny enough, I do it a lot online. I do it a lot on screen, which a lot of people resist if we're in the same city, because they think, no, I want to feel energy. I want to be in the same room. And I often say, don't be surprised. In my experience, we often go faster, deeper on screen. And they go, why is that? I say, well, first of all, there's a distance that makes you feel safer. Someone literally said to me, well, if you're being stupid, I'm just going to close the laptop and, you're gone. So, and there's a point to that.
Yes.
And so there's
protection there.
You're in your own, and you're in your own four walls and you're at home. So there's a bit more safety there, the distance. And I say most of my work these days is through coaching, through insights. Of course, there's tools like hypnosis or trances. I use trance a lot, or tapping points. They are incredible. They have helped me amazingly. But I found out at some point that in order to, let's say you work on the commands or topic of a trance or hypnosis or what you really want to tap, I always took a long time to find out what the real topic under the topic is. So I always was thinking a lot. So one of the routes I take is okay, why are you here? What is the belief under that? And what is the belief under the belief, and the belief under the belief under the belief?
Yeah.
And very often we land on an insight where people go, I can't believe I said this. And they realize they're holding a certain belief. I mean, let's grab something out of the air. Let's say somebody says, well, I want to find love. Mm-hmm. And their one belief is, I want to have love because then I feel safe. And then you unearth, as you called it before, and you go deeper and deeper, and then suddenly they go, but being in love is totally unsafe. And so suddenly they're there with two completely contradicting beliefs, which you can often see their eyes literally twirling. It's almost like the confusion of, the confusion of, well, what does that mean? That doesn't make sense. And I have them repeat. So just so I understand, you're saying in order to feel safe, you need to be loved, but being loved means unsafety to you. For instance, I'm totally making this up now.
Yeah.
And they go, that doesn't make sense at all. And very often in that moment, you don't need a trance, you don't need to tap, you don't need tools, because as soon as something doesn't make sense for the brain, it seeks a new route. And the topic is gone. The danger in that is that people 2 weeks later don't remember that they ever had the problem. And I'm like, I've got my notes. You know how you felt last week.
For the record, you did feel this way.
I love that.
That's fantastic.
No, that's...
When they go, I'm not sure if this is working. I said, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's like I always say, if you have a splinter in your finger and you pull out that splinter, if you have a splinter, all you feel is that splinter all day long. And it's annoying. And the moment you pull it out, it's gone. You don't think, oh, I once had a splinter. You don't even think I had a splinter yesterday. It's just
you forget. Gone. Yeah, no, you're totally right.
Well, and that makes it harder to recognize the growth, the personal growth, and connect the dots for people often too. We talk about that a lot on the podcast is, reflecting on, progress and making sure you celebrate the progress, small or large, it doesn't matter. Reflect. And so to your point, like it's so quickly missed, if you don't acknowledge it and celebrate it early, you forgot it even happened. And you miss this evolution or progress of yourself in the process. Mm-hmm. So fascinating.
If it's done right, it becomes intrinsic. And that's what I love about this work. And I don't believe you're changing into something new. We're just taking away what actually has never been yours.
I love that.
Oh,
I love that. That's beautiful.
We wrap all the crap that's outside that's never been used, so you can, pardon for being so grand, so you can actually enjoy your magnificence. And I wholeheartedly
taking away what's not really yours. I love that. One thing that you touched on while I was stalking you was
we call it research. We all know it's stalking to some degree. Yes.
Research. While I was doing research, I got comfort from your next level, same devil, because and I'll make this one up. I wasn't necessarily thinking of this, although I've had this issue before. I'm not lovable, and that I'm not lovable keeps coming up. And, does that mean I'm leveling up? Okay. And so can you expand a little bit on your thoughts on that? I found that to be really, I loved it. I thought, okay, well, that's encouraging and inspirational, actually.
I went, oh. I mean, just at the next level, same devil. It's just, yes.
Well, because I would have a tendency to feel like, have I not, okay, universe, have I not already dealt with this? Like, we know this, we know that monkey, we know that blah, 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 like, go away. We've dealt with you. And so for me, I get mad, I get angry. Very angry. I have discussions, like very heated board meetings with my, universal posse. Okay. And and I am definitely the CEO and I'm like, what the hell? Like, don't keep sending me this stuff. Okay. I already know it. I got it. Got you. Okay. And I actually write down, we call it connecting the dots. So I write down and try to understand what the flow is. Okay, I got that video twice now. Gina, what do you think about that? I try to do that. But I'd never thought that getting another vision of this is I'm leveling up. And so can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I love this because I mean, it popped up so many times with clients and it made me nervous in the beginning. And we, as you said, we all know this. So you start this personal development journey and you get your coaches and you release your triggers and you tap until you're bloody and all this stuff.
Yes.
And then you go into the next situation and it's all there again. And you're like, what? As you said, I dealt with this 100 times. Why is this showing up again?
Yes.
And what we spoke of before, I think it was before we started the recording, you know, this meeting that I ended up in, you know, no, let me start differently. New level, same level basically means you reach for a contrast in life. You want to expand more. You want to have more visibility. You want to have more success. You want to be more lovable. You want to have a partner, or, you know, you want to get married or whatever your desire is. And so you reach out, you hit some contrast. So you send out a desire. And in my opinion, usually two things happen. Either law of attraction uncorks and all the doors open and ta-da, and you just walk in. That happens if your desire is completely aligned with your innermost beliefs. However, if your innermost beliefs are not aligned and you actually think, let's say you're not lovable and you're going on the next date, or you're actually someone who's nice and not someone who's treating you badly, you know, so that, to stay with the example, you're reaching for the new level. And even though you have dealt with that topic, you might now feel the same anxiety, but it only shows up because you're reaching for a new level. Actually, I jumped ahead. So the door opens, you go through, that's all fine. Or it shows you believe you're not lovable. So you find somebody to help you with the unlovable topic. Right. You clear it, you go on your date, and with that date, everything is fine. However, that probably doesn't go well, or, you know, it didn't turn out. And you actually see, well, I have attracted someone who just mirrors my self-belief issues.
Right.
Let's put it mildly. And so you're reaching out for the new contrast, not just dating, but dating someone who treats me with respect, with love, who, you know, on eye level is something that I like to attract, as in, you know, we're inspiring each other. And so you're reaching to the new platform. I call it the new platform. Therefore, new doors either open or it goes, well, actually, for the level you've been on before, the work you've done was enough. But if you want to go higher, you got to dig deeper. And it's usually the same topic. Therefore, it feels the same. And that is, for me, so for me, growth doesn't happen straight up or on a spiral. It's a level up, and then it's another level up, and then it's another level up. And so we get comfortable in what used to be far out of our comfort zone, because we do the work, we have coached, we have gone deep, we released the triggers, and now we're comfortable on something that was at some point so far out of our reach, but that's normal now. And then when the new contrast hits, the new contract, the new lover, the new movie, whatever you want, you send out a new desire, and therefore your stuff sparks up again. It's a different facet of the same thing. So it goes deeper. And the example that I touched on before was when I first ever taught this material, it was to 4 friends in my living room, and I freaked out the night before. I literally freaked out. Told my partner, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. Well, who do I think I am? I'm a performer. I'm not even a performer. I'm shit. I'm shit at everything. I went to half an hour later, oh, I'm just going to wing it. And suddenly how can you go from I'm canceling this to I'm just going to wing it? How is this possible? So I did this. And then I did my first workshop. So, and I noticed at some point the fears were always the same, but only when the audiences got bigger or better, for the lack of a better word. So when I then was invited to something called the ATL, the ATL Europe, Association of Transformational Leaders. Again, I had no idea why I was there. Because in my identity, I'm still that actor that didn't know how to act. And suddenly you were asking me to speak in front of all these people. And the night before, I was sitting in my hotel room. Well, it was the second meeting I was invited to, so I knew half of them already. And then the briefing was, Gido, we want you to speak. You are going to be the last speaker on the weekend. The lady before you, she's flying in from America. She does very similar work to you. So she's going to do that. And then you're just going to take them deeper. I didn't know much more. So the night before, I still didn't know what I was going to do with them because I was so in my fear state. Yeah. And at some point, I outlined my 45 or 60 minutes. I think it was 60 minutes. Thought, okay, this is stuff I can always talk about. How we're being programmed, our beliefs, how we dig into this. And so apparently I was the last speaker. And so I was listening to, it was Professor Lise Janelle, and she did her talk, her lecture, and it was 85%, 90% of at least of what I was teaching to the point. Oh, geez. That's, I mean, they told me we were similar. And I remember sitting in the background, literally ripping up those papers going, okay.
I got no papers left.
I got an hour to fill.
Oh God.
And she went over by 15 minutes. So I only had 45 minutes. And so I had to go into flow. And I started off by basically telling them, now just shat my pants and let's see where we're going with it.
Honesty is the best policy, even for leaders. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, the title was, I think, The Dark Side of the Crystal, as in, the stuff that drives you and gets you to all your success is very often the stuff that at some point blocks you from getting further. So let's say you're feeling insignificant might be a great driver to get you into a great career. But the moment you actually want to get visibility or actually want to enjoy it, it's that feeling of insignificance that's blocking you. So I started off by, growing up, it's just always feeling different, the ballet boy in the football family, for instance. Has anyone here ever felt like they were so different, so out of what was expected? And I literally saw the whole room go nodding.
Yes.
And then I just left my body and just went with it, basically.
Wow.
But this is what I mean. The fear the night before was because I was heading for a completely new level and for everything I desired. This was my goal. Speaking to those people was one of my dreams. Speaking was one of my dreams. And so the doors opened, law of attraction uncorked, delivered, and suddenly I'm sitting there facing my deepest, darkest shadows. And that's when I realized, okay, when the same fear shows up, heading for a breakthrough, a massive breakthrough. And what's the worst that can happen?
I love it.
Well, the shitting the pants might be the worst part of that story. Yeah.
But what an incredible story. I mean, the guy who wrote Fuck It. I mean, that's his book.
It's so great.
Good. Well, and we listen, I'm keeping track not only of your paperwork for but of your royalty check that will be coming, because you've used Eloanne Cork twice so beautifully. I'm like, we owe him a royalty or something. He's a spokesperson. So good. It's so true.
I love it. Well, let's transition.
What a great story, though.
It's the best story, and it makes me feel so good. You have no idea, and I'm sure it's going to be wonderful to our audience members too. That somebody as successful as you still feels that. I mean, I remember sitting in a hotel room in New York City, going, "What the hell am I going to say?" Okay, and I was on a panel, and people were out drinking, and I left early. Okay, because I thought, well, and I got to come up with something.
Hungover on the panel wouldn't help.
Meaningful. I'm usually the only woman there, so I'm the only woman on the panel, and, what am I going to say? And I got nothing, and that whole, that, and, I went and I think I killed it. I had to struggle for some words. I'm like, stand down, all you men, I have things to say, but
I think it's interesting that, by the course of events and, your, pre-planned topics being covered so perfectly and beautifully by the person before you, that you were able to scrap it and kind of just get real. And it sounds as if the story you told was the story most people, or that, you know, the experience most other people were having in that room. And so, you know, I think I kind of think as you were tapped in and you delivered what that group needed in the moment, just you were the right person to be standing up on the stage that day. So I just find that just beautiful. And so much, we always think our stuff is our own stuff and no one else has that stuff. And
no, it was divinely orchestrated, Jeanna. It's so beautiful. Yeah.
And I just remembered the safety mode I went into. I mean, one thing I know I always can do is a nice meditation or trance. So what's the worst thing that can happen? I do a meditation with him.
Yeah.
And we ended up doing a big forgiveness process that evening or that afternoon.
I love that.
And this, we are still talking about that forgiveness moment, really, because that is always one of the biggest tipping points for a lot of people.
Yes.
I love that. Can you speak more about that? I know we talked about, you have the power of forgiveness. It's a course that you're leading people through. And how did you come to, I don't know, be called to the forgiveness work?
If I would only know.
Yeah. It's a flow. It's got to be a flow and an impulse thing. Did it come? It would be great if it came from that conference. From that point on, I knew everybody needed to do forgiveness.
No, I mean, at that point, I actually had recorded the Angels of Forgiveness before, because I realized that forgiveness does sooner or later always show up. So I always have taken my clients through programs, because I thought one session isn't going to cut it. And so we always did like 6 or 12 sessions or something like this. And I noticed at some point there was always I have to forgive my father for this, or I have to forgive my mother for this. Usually, you know, this is the stuff we all have to deal with. And it's not even the big traumatic stuff. And I've learned to see that for me, forgiveness is a self-care tool. It's not about setting you free. It's not about what you did was right and I was wrong. It's not about saying you win, I lose. It's about saying, I want my power back. I don't, because we don't forgive.
Right.
Because we want to protect ourselves from whatever happened, never happening again.
Right.
The problem with that is we keep ourselves in the very energy that we're trying to protect ourselves from. And therefore, forgiving and cutting us loose from that energy, no matter how harsh the instance was, because we only ever forgive the person and not the deed.
Right.
I think this is something the Dalai Lama said: forgive the person, not necessarily the act or the deed. It's about you taking your freedom back, your power back, your love back, and not leaving it with some person that you're now continuously attacking for the last 20 years. He or she might not even be alive.
Right.
And so it's literally harmful to your entire system. And so I saw this popping up over and over again. So I think in 2013, this is the only CD I really ever published back then, and that was a forgiveness process with the help of the angels. And I recorded this literally under the duvet. I think there's a picture on my Instagram. If you go deep, if you stop right.
Yeah, it's so great. I've been there, but I didn't find that picture.
It's scary. You're encouraging this, Gido, but we'll talk about that offline. But keep going.
There's literally a clothes dryer standing on top of my bed with a blanket on top, an iPad hanging on the clothes dryer. The microphone in there, but my computer was so old it was continuously overheating, so it was standing on a long cable outside of the room on an ice pack. This is how I recorded my first CD, and it's still out there, it's still going. And the basics of that process are still there. This is what I still teach. It's a bit softer nowadays, but there's more love in there. We're bringing more power back. And I just noticed, because I was the one who I needed to go so much into forgiveness to get better in my career. I needed to forgive the people who told me, oh, you're never going to be a singer. Your voice is not strong enough. You're whatever, you know, being a dancer, you get trained 8 hours in front of a mirror, 6 days a week, being told you're not good enough, you're not tall enough, you don't jump enough, you don't turn enough, you don't stretch enough, you're just never enough.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of forgiveness you want to let go, and in order to just go, actually, what if I am enough? Just today.
I think, gosh, I have so much to say about that. I'm just taking a second. I think a lot about, for myself, I mean, there's a lot of that same forgiveness stuff that you just walked through around, placing your perception of yourself on things someone else planted for you. And we all do that in various ways throughout our life. But I think, with the last couple of years with COVID and the pandemic, Holly and I've had this conversation quite a bit about, we launched this podcast right before the pandemic, and it's been such a blessing in both of our lives. It's allowed us to talk with incredible people like yourself and learn so much and share kind of what we had intended this podcast to do, which is just to create a platform for people to come and listen to our craziness and learn something, just like we do for each other in our friendship and have done for 18 years. I think I feel like I'm angry a little bit about the pandemic and that stall that it caused for everyone. So it's not just me, but it's everyone in different ways and to varying extents. So, and I think about the podcast and how much further we could be aligned, and it's easy to get upset about that and angry about it. And so I think about it often in terms of as life is starting to come back and the world's starting to come back to life, how do we put that away? What's a good process for acknowledging it and forgiving what has occurred and moving forward in a healthy way?
Is forgiveness due there?
Is forgiveness due? Yes, maybe a good question.
Even my daughter, she's like, I lost a year of high school. I'm not ready to graduate.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not ready, like with these scary eyes. And I'm like, well, you gotta be. Okay. And
you got those from your mother, those scary eyes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's true.
Yes. So maybe that's a great question. Is forgiveness necessary for what we've just gone through and all the feelings we have about it to varying extents?
It might be. I suspect yes for most people, depending on how they sailed through or did or haven't. I call forgiveness the vitamin C of personal development. Vitamin C is not the cure-all of everything, but it's involved in, I think, 15,000 metabolic processes in your body. So, it supports pretty much everything.
Yes.
And this is what I see forgiveness to be like. And one of the big misconceptions around forgiveness, I think I need to get into this first, is that people think there's one incident and now I need to forgive this one incident and then it's done. And then they get off. It's funny because 2 days later, they're angry again. But usually there's different aspects, different angles to why you're angry. And that's why this method that I developed just makes sure you keep looking. I call it weaving the threads. When we were children, we had these nail pictures, we call them. It was a wooden board, and it was probably just a poor people's game. I don't know. We had, you had a wooden board, and there were nails in there. And then you took a thread and you painted a picture by pulling the threads through the nails.
Yes.
And this is how I see forgiveness. So it's not just one big thing. It's okay. Right now, I'm angry at, let's say, a certain person. Let's start a little bit smaller. Let's say I'm angry at my ex-partner. So I got to forgive that partner for doing whatever he or she did to me. And then I realize I have to ask, so what else am I angry about? Oh, it might actually my expectation that put us there, because I am playing a little part in this.
Yes.
And then there's also the programming that I might have gotten from my parents, that I'm always making myself smaller in certain situations. So, there's different levels. We're going deeper. And at some point I discovered two big things. Actually, collective is one thing, but also forgiving life, God, or the world, or the universe has for me has been for me a massive breakthrough, because I had forgiven in one certain incident pretty much everything and it was fine, but something was still lingering. And then in a session I took myself, something unearthed where I realized I'm not a religious person, but I was angry at God. Why am I always put in this position where I'm being there to build everybody up, and when they have their success, I'm being dropped? And apparently I had this belief and I was angry at God. That wasn't even the truth. It wasn't even the reality, but that was something that was anchored. So, and I realized I need to forgive God. Now, I didn't really, because, you know, and depending on your relationship to God, you might be really angry listening to this. But it was actually becoming aware that the anger wasn't towards the situation, but towards something bigger.
Yes.
So bringing this to your question is now asking, what are you actually angry about? Are you angry at, I don't know, you know, are you angry at a bat? You brought this virus of some person eating a bat, or whatever, who knows what story that was. Are you angry at people who make regulations? Are you angry at the world? Are you angry at God for creating something like this? So this is the first question you have to ask, and then start taking off the peels of the onion layer by layer and go into forgiveness. And that takes, you know, it takes different processes, but once you understand that, it can be instant. I love it, because when I speak about forgiveness in general in my courses in the beginning or in my sessions, people very often, I can literally see them pulling back because nobody wants to forgive. Because we all have or had these conceptions of what that means. There's these myths, as in you have to bring them back into your life, you're giving away your power, and it's quite the opposite. None of that is true. And so then you have to learn a few ideas and processes. But what I love is, as in now in module 5 in the currently running Power of Forgiveness, that they go, oh, and then I just did this process. It took me a minute, and then I looked what else is there, and that took me 30 seconds, and then I was done. And I'm like, and that's what I'm talking about. It's instant forgiveness. And that's when you've got the method down, because I think you need to forgive everything and everybody. Someone bumps at you in the street, I don't know, are they running because their child is in hospital? Are they running because they are hungry? Are they running because they're just badly behaved? I don't know, but I forgive them because it's about me feeling good. Let me just turn this light on quickly.
Yes. Well, so if we are trying to, our audience members, we're trying to think, okay, you know, I'm one of those people that I think, well, I've thought of more people I might need to forgive, but I think I've forgiven everybody. Like, I feel like I've forgiven everybody. And so and that's probably not true, right? So I already found one while you were talking, but so would we peel back those layers a little bit more? And in the peeling back, do I need to be angry? I mean, is it angry? How do you know you haven't forgiven? How do I know?
You know.
You know. Okay,
you know. Yeah.
All right, I will work on that. Okay, like he saw to my soul, Gina.
No.
It keeps popping up. If it keeps popping up and it keeps aggravating you, and it keeps, I say, what in this situation is still angering me or annoying me or hurting me? For instance, if I think of a past relationship, everything was cleared, everything was, you know, it was all good, and then there was this anger at God, and then everything was cleared, and then at some point I realized, but I'm angry. We never saved the friendship. How did I do everybody else? And that was a part. So the feeling was, again, different level, but the devil was still the same. The feeling was still aimed at one person, but it was actually a completely different topic. It was, oh, it's my expectation that I want a friendship, and apparently someone needs to save their current relationship, and that's, I understand. Of course I understand that. So the moment that popped up, it's very often, I think very often forgiveness is needed when you have the right awareness, when you understand the construct behind it.
I love that. I love that. It's so, well, it's so inspiring. I haven't even thought about it, but I think about, you know, my trajectory. I was always the only woman around. I mean, I tried to dress like a man. I mean, I'm not manly. Okay. And I tried to fit the part and get in the box. And I think I have to go back and then I never had a mentor. I had to be scrappy. And I think I'm mad about it. Okay. You're right. I know. And so I never even thought about it until now, that I need to go back and forgive my whole corporate, you know, trajectory, and all the people involved in that, because I'm angry about, you know, how I was treated and viewed, and, you know, I just had to get by. So I think you do know, like, but I hadn't thought about it. So I would invite people to stop after our podcast today and really think about those. And there is a weaving there. I mean, because there's a lot of weaving. I mean, and I think parts to that. God would be involved too. Is like, you know what? Like, I always like, give me a fucking break. Okay. Like, you know, could you just give me a break? You know, like, I've had Saturn, I'm an astrologer too. I've had Saturn sitting on my head my whole life. Go away, you know, go away. You know, Saturn's about discipline. Yeah. I think of her as like a big booped old lady, like shaking your hand at you with gray hair and all crusty and doesn't like me. that damn Saturn. Okay. Yes. Anyway,
not a fan of her.
I've gotten worked up here. Okay. So, so I think,
interesting.
I think, you know, that invitation for our audience to really think about it. I mean, I really would not have thought about that until now. Okay. And now I'm like, holy cow, I should probably go back and bless all of that as I'm moving forward, because I'm on the up level of the level. Okay. So that vitamin C,
you're blowing right by those corporate people.
Yes. That vitamin C. Well, my body loves the vitamin C. Okay. So there we go.
Yeah, and I just want to fill into that, because when you look back at that corporate past that you have and that anger that you hold against the man and the system, and, you know, there's so many different things, you won't remember everything. You can actually go, first of all, as you said, I love that you said, I'm just going to bless this whole thing.
Yes.
Because at some point, who's to say, I mean, of course, this is a blessing. Someone would say, why am I the only woman in this? And someone would say, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm the only woman, because they definitely need a woman in here. You know, it's always a shift in perspective.
Right.
And then you can forgive the entire past, the entire group. And again, if there's someone who's standing out, who has just a different hook, a singular hook, who's making you angry, you know, because that person will pop up.
I love that. And I go ahead. Yeah, that person will pop
up. When I get angry during yoga in the morning, I'm like, why is this person popping up now? Third time I'm doing the yoga this week. I had this as well. Like, you're teaching forgiveness. Just sit down and just do it. Okay. You know, so you've got to notice. See what's popping up.
I love that. I love that as even a practice. You know, we talk about like just stacking mindfulness things in the morning, and whether you're doing yoga or meditation, or even if you're just in the shower, you know, where your thoughts are going. I love that. I must have done some work on it. I love working with men. You know, there's no anger towards any of that, but there's this anger of the system. And so, so unpacking that a little bit, and then the hook, I'm sure there's somebody with a hook there. Okay. And going through that, but I think having that as a practice would be something that would be very beneficial.
Yes. Well, and if you think about it too, like, you know, when we talk about, you know, creating our badass life, and that's kind of the whole model is, you know, where your energy takes you, you are where your energy is. Like, so that if something keeps popping up and bugging you, it's detracting from following your path, you know, putting that energy in more positive ways, moving yourself forward, you know, more internal versus this kind of external negative, you know, dilution of energy. So I think that's important to think about it that way too.
And absolutely. And I want to just demystify, for me, forgiveness is one of the biggest things you can do, but I don't want you to think of it as something so massive, so the holy grail that you don't dare go there.
Yeah.
That's why I say I want you to forgive the woman that served you at the sausage stand. I don't know why I chose that word as a German. Sausage stand.
I love it.
You're probably required to go there once a month or something. As a German.
I'm even a veggie. So, you know, the woman at the German veggie sausage stand, and because I don't know, it's been rude to you. So
I love it.
Don't make it this big biblical thing. Make it something you do every day, like brushing your teeth and your hair, and
part of that routine. Yes. We talked so much on this podcast, and I think this is part of what holds many people, myself included, for a long time back from personal development, is it seems so onerous and big and scary and heavy, whether it's law of attraction or any mindfulness, meditation, all of those practices, routines, that they shouldn't be hard. None of this should be hard. They should be integrated into your life, and they should come naturally and be easy. It's like breathing. All of these practices should be part of your life, like breathing. It shouldn't be onerous. So I love that you said that, because we've actually been talking quite a bit about it on the podcast. So thank you for that.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, I always say, and at heart, I'm just a very lazy person. So I'm always looking
I don't think
for
so.
the fastest route to the biggest growth. And if I can't do it on the go, I'm not interested. I know I won't do it.
You're not lazy, you're efficient.
And you want to up level his life. You know what, Jeanna, like, we've stolen Gido for a very long time.
I know.
And I know we can keep him forever. I mean,
well,
don't let me.
I know.
Okay. So
yeah.
we would just say thank you for being here. And is there anything else that we haven't covered that you think is really important as far as your work, as far as giving back to our audience? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, you mentioned, to make things easy, I would highly recommend you find a routine for yourself, a little morning routine, so you're not getting hijacked by your phone before you start your day. And even if it's just 5, 10 minutes or 60 minutes, I love taking an hour not looking at my phone. Someone recently said, you know, if you open up your phone before you even get up, you already handed your day over to someone else's agenda. And that just really hit home with me. So find a practice that works for you, that you like doing, but also it is a discipline. So I hear the Saturn thing going, and I don't know if I'm allowed to share with you. I've got a little gift on my website that I could.
Oh, yes. Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Please.
Because one of the things that developed out of the other course I do, the 6-week masters, which was supposed to be a working title, and now that's the title, is working with power questions. And that, for me, is one of the quickest hacks to turn around your energy, to shift your focus to somewhere else, and to access your brain differently. And I'm very proud to actually put that on my website yesterday. It's a PDF where you just learn, there's research in there, and you learn why affirmations probably don't always work and put more stress on you than actually helpful. And this is where that trick or that hack or that tool comes in.
Oh my gosh, this is
just
fantastic.
it works when people actually sign up to this, because I put this on yesterday. So you can actually just get
this. I'm running there.
We're going to go do it, and we'll let you know for sure. Yeah, that is fantastic, Gido. Thank you.
I know.
So we'll put the link
generous.
in the show notes for everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. That's fantastic.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your generosity, your time. We truly value you and it and all that you're doing in this world. Thank you so much for the blessings, and you get to have your Friday night.
I know.
Oh, well, I'm the one to say thank you, because you girls are just amazing. I mean, it's been I could sit here for another 3 hours with you as well. And I just want to say, for you putting this out during these last 2 years, you have reached I'm sure this is beyond anything that you can comprehend of how much you actually help people, because this is what everybody needs.
Yeah.
Us coming together and saying, here's something you can raise your energy with. And so I wanted to say thank you to you guys.
Oh,
Thank you.
that's beautiful.
Sweet. I
Thank
love
you
that.
so very
I'm
much.
going to record that and just play that over and over again.
Yes.
Gina.
And Holly won't sleep tonight because she said Gido said he could talk to me for another 3 hours. So she's going to be scheduling time with you, Gido. Yes. Let me know if you need help with that
All
paperwork.
right. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gido.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.